being for the recording. This is the part 2 of the tier list ranking. Last time we did personal favourites. This time we're going for a more analytical effort with the basically with the notion of which AI faction is the strongest in the campaigns and which ones tend to be the weakest, and we will go step by step process throughout this. I'm not going to go in the order it's got them laid out here. I'm going to go in the order of the ones I'm the most knowledgeable about, and then the ones that are a bit weaker. And this is in terms of the AI, so this would be if I was to play an AI only with no human interference. So, first of all, and this is campaign, this is not battle, this is just campaign. First of all, actually going to go with Dol-Guldur. And honestly, I think the Dol-Guldur AI, in terms of their function and behaviour, are actually a solid A. Now, the Dol-Guldur units are pretty damn awful in straight up pitch battles. They are the orc variation of the things like Enidwaith. They are designed for ambush. But when you think about it in the actual context of the Middle-earth divide and conquer map, Dol-Guldur start off with Dorwinion slightly far away to their sort of southeast, but then immediately to their west they have the river, and then beyond the river they have Lothlorien, and then above Lothlorien they have Khazad-dûm. Then in between all of it they've got the Anduin Vale. Then you've got Dale slightly to the north, then you've got the Woodland Realm in the northern half of Mirkwood, and then beyond them you also have Erebor, and then you have Rohan to the south west sometimes. So Dol-Guldur start off absolutely surrounded by enemies, and the factor that the AI is able to last as long as it does is quite profound. And I mean, just take my Dorwinion campaign. I took out one of Dol-Guldur's primary allies in terms of the Easterlings, and yet, whilst I'm not fully attacking them, even between the Anduin, the Woodland Realm, Dale, and Lorien, Dol-Guldur are still very much on the offensive more than the defensive. So they, even in this late game, even with these higher quality units coming out, they are still holding their own very well, I have to say. So I am going to put them on an A. The thing that keeps them out of an S tier is they don't tend to, the AI doesn't tend to concentrate on one enemy. It tries to sprawl out too quickly, and that normally ends up being its detriment. Like, lore-wise it works, but from a gameplay perspective it tends to be the thing that trips them up more than anything else. Also, the factor that it's the AI and they don't really tend to lean on the ambushing as much as they potentially could. But then also on the flip side, whilst I'm not talking about battles, I will say that they are the masters of the poison arrow, which is a bonus for them. Not against the elves, but against everyone else. So that's where the Dol-Guldur AI goes for me. And to be honest, after I've covered the rest of them, they may sneak into low S tier, possibly. Moving on from that, the next and the first S tier in this tier list already, Gundabad. The Gundabad AI, in my experience, is such a force to be reckoned with, and that goes through multiple different versions. I mean, I know that a lot of the reason why they can normally expand quite well is because Rune's AI can push over Dorwinian's AI, which often means that between Dol Guldur and Rune, groups like Dale and Erebor come under threat a lot more, so Erebor's unable to expand as much. But because of those things, Gundabad can just... Well, Gundabad walks all over the Anduin most campaigns, unfortunately, but they can also just swarm. Like, I've seen them take Thranduil's Halls and Erebor and Dale in my old Ered Luin campaign. Like, they were controlling... They didn't control the Iron Hills, I will say that, but they were dominating that. They were dominating northern Mirkwood and the Grey Mountains and all of these things. So they were a powerhouse to be reckoned with. And yeah, their units are strong, but it's also their AI starts out with a bit more freedom, because yes, they are hated by the dwarves, but they don't start at war with the men or the elves, so they can swing either way. And I mean, that's partly why what's happened in my Dorwinian campaigns happened, with them being attacked by Angmar. But yeah, I think they are a very solid S tier. Are they the best S tier? That remains to be seen, but they are still very, very solid. Up there. Trying to think on who we should do next. We've done Gundabad, we've done Dol Guldur, so we've done 2 orc factions. Let's spice it up a bit more. And yeah, let's go for the next one, keeping to the same area, Dale. Trying to keep it out of my personal preference, which is why they're not in the D tier. Dale's AI, in my experience, it doesn't matter which campaign I'm doing, even in a a Shattered Realm campaign with the all against all, when I was playing as Rune, I pieced out Dorwinian. Dale just, they don't expand, and yes, they deal with monetary issues early on, but I mean, in my Dorwinian campaign, they've had multiple opportunities to push into Dol Guldur, and their armies are just too timid. And yeah, it's a really timid AI, and that's the thing I find quite weird about it. So they have plenty of opportunities where they could overpower the Dol Guldur armies, and I mean, this isn't a case of me not knowing about something, because I do check the Fog of War a lot, plus I'm right on the border, so I am watching it happen. Yeah, and yes, some of this is slightly from the Dorwinian campaign and the frustration with how timid the Dale AI is, but it's also from other campaigns. It's like, they either don't get the chance to expand out, or when they do, they are so very slow. Like, even the dwarves are faster than them. So yeah, unfortunately Dale can't go above C tier for me when you're looking at the campaign side of things. Right, next up, down to D, and there's a reason for that. Now I'm going to go through a collection of AI factions who operate the way they do because they're scripted too, so I can't really judge them like in the same way that Dale's AI has more freedom, and they're just very slow most of the time, or timid, but these other factions are designed to be more reserved or things, so they're getting clumped together, and that is Khazad-dûm, Woodland Realm, and for now that's what I'm going to keep that with. Khazad-dûm take a while to... The Khazad-dûm AI tends to, when they succeed, they tend to take Moria and Irui, the little village north of Lorien, and sorry, I didn't mean to hit the mic there, and they basically sit there for a very long time, and they really don't do too much. Now, where I'm at in the Dorwinian campaign, which is close to about 150 turns, I've actually started to see them making moves against the goblins, but they've been sat there for just so long. And the Woodland Realm, I mean, the whole thing about Thranduil's Realm, even in the lore, is they're more isolationist. And the same thing applies there. They stick to their own territory, they don't expand as much. And again, I'm sticking them there and not lower, even though it is incredibly frustrating playing as Dorwinian and seeing them just dawdle about, but it's how they operate. So in that I can be a bit more forgiving with it, because that's how they're designed to be. But both the AI are still quite strong and they can take territories, it's just they're slow by design, so I can't put them higher than a C, but I also can't really put them lower, so C kind of has to be that middling level of they're there, but it's because of like a design mechanic more so than anything else. So that's what's going on with those two. Now, who should we do next? I think to start off the B tier, going to put Khand. Khand are a odd one because once again they get two different options with their AI. And I haven't really seen what they can do with the good side, because with the good side they're just surrounded and it's a real challenge for them, so if I was judging it down there, unfortunately they'd probably get pushed down to a C or even a D. But that's more through victim of circumstance than anything else. But what I am going to say is that when Khand don't get boxed in, if Khand side with Sauron and they don't get boxed in by like Mordor or Harad or things like that, they can absolutely dominate. They are powerhouses and they can just swarm and swarm and swarm. But it's partly they're on the B partly because if they're too slow then they end up getting boxed in, but the other element of it is if they take the other side it does drag them down a little bit, and also they tend to almost have the opposite issue to Dol Guldur. They tunnel vision, but they don't tunnel vision against one faction, they tunnel vision against one territory instead of trying to sort of branch out. It's like they just hit again and again against basically a brick wall. And yeah, it does. And also the other thing that lets them down is just their sheer remote starting location, so it takes them a long while to basically try to build up or do anything. So I mean, if you want to argue another aspect, in my Dorwinian campaign, as much as I'm having issues with them at the moment, if I had not taken out Rune, Khand wouldn't have even been able to get to me. So you have that aspect to consider as well, is like they can do very well if the geography of their allies allows them to. If it doesn't, then they can just get stranded. And that is also why Harad are going here as well. And that's very much because of what I've seen in the Dorwinian and a few other campaigns. When they get trapped, they just sit there, like they can't do anything. They don't, and because the Med 2 AI isn't the best with diplomacy, they don't seek out things like military access or stuff like that. So, but it's also a case at the point in this campaign now, even if they got military access with Khand and Mordor, is where would they go? Like, they can just sit and chill in the south, and there's not a whole lot things can do. But one thing I will make them above Khand for is the fact that they can get ships. So if they are and because they start off with their capital, they can already build ships. so they do have the ability of moving troops elsewhere. That they get the ships does put them a bit above Khand, but I mean, even then, they can still be quite a docile AI, unfortunately. Which is a shame because their AI is it's almost like the best blend of evil men. Like, they're not too spammy, but at the same time, their units are. Their units are not the best, but they're not the worst either. Like, the way I see Harad is they're very much something like the Rohan of. Yeah, they're like very much the Rohan of the evil men. And I mean, that's how they get shaped up in the stories anyway, and the books, so in some cases. But anyway, who should we move on to next? Now we're getting into the territory of toughness. You know, actually, I think I'm going to get them out of the way. Easterlings are... Honestly, the Easterlings are in S tier as well. Their AI, when it gets unleashed, is absolutely phenomenal. Dorwinion can give them some trouble, but as soon as they push through Dorwinion, is like I've seen them just rip through Erebor and Dale and push and expand out, and yeah, they can cover so much territory and control just a massive proportion. And I think the sheer variety of the units they get and the way they push is why I'm also edging them a bit above Gundabad, because in Divide and Conquer, yes, you could maybe have some Easterlings go and attack Gondor, but their primary focus in the campaign is the north. It's Erebor, it's Dale, it's Dorwinion, it's Thranduil, it's that lot. And considering they're one faction, yes, okay, they get assistance from Dol Guldur and Gundabad sometimes, but they can still just stomp through just everything. And it's also a testament to the factor that they have a good roster, and maybe that's what will be the next one, ranking the rosters, in my opinion. The full rosters, not the like the Beacon of Hope recruitment stuff and things like that. But yes, Rune sits quite pretty in that area. And next up, we will go for... You know what? I'm going to go for an interesting... Well, they're all interesting, but a bit of an odd placement for one. I'm going to go Dol Amroth, and I'm actually going to put them in A. And the reason why I put them in A is their survivability. I mean, yes, AI alone with no intrusion from me, they have outlasted Gondor. In terms of my Dorwinion campaign, they have actually lasted longer than their sort of semi-overseers. Dol Amroth is a very interesting faction in the factor that they can last as long as they do, considering that they can get surrounded by Harad, Khand, Mordor, get hit by the Arden Iron as well. And it's just like right now in the Dorwinion campaign, they hold their island territory, which I can't remember the name of off the top of my head, and they hold Dol Amroth itself, the city. And I mean, even with Atheland, it took Mordor ages to try and take it, whereas I've been seeing Mordor just take out the Gondor territories in like single sieges. So the Dol Amroth is just powerful, and I think there is an auto-resolve thingy, which is obviously what a lot of the AI stuff gets based off of in Med 2, which tends to lend a favour to Cav in some cases. I might be completely wrong about that, but obviously Dol Amroth are a very heavy cavalry faction, so maybe they benefit from that a little bit, but they're up there not because... And when they get given the opportunity to, they can actually seriously expand as well. They are a faction that have a good survivability, and when they get given the chance, can expand like anything. So, yeah, they're up there in A. Yes, their expansion is strong, but honestly, for me, it's more of a testament to their survivability as a faction, considering they're a faction that are incredibly boxed in. And next up, who to go for next? Decisions. The Great Eye, no. That is not being ranked because it's not a playable faction. You know what? We were talking about Dol Guldur, let's go for Gondor. This is going to be a bit of a weird and a controversial one because, yeah, okay, they can hold and they can hold for quite a while, but I'm honestly actually going to stick Gondor down at D. Their AI, I have seen in basically every long form campaign I've ever managed to accomplish with Divide and Conquer, every single time I have just seen Gondor get overwhelmed and overwhelmed and overwhelmed, and it always happens so quickly as well. And I will say part of the issue, and I do genuinely think this is part of the problem, is that in so many of my campaigns Gondor decide to go after Enedwaith. They decide to try and expand out and go after Enedwaith as well as trying to fight Mordor and fight in the south. And they spread themselves too thin. And I mean, in this Dorwinian campaign, the fiefdoms, the southern fiefs of Gondor, were falling one by one pretty damn quickly. Where was the Gondorian faction leader? Sat in the middle of Enedwaith. Sat in between Enedwaith and Isengard territories for no real apparent reason. And it is the thing that I find the most frustrating is, I don't know, but their faction seems to be an AI that makes a lot of incompetent decisions. And yes, the Med 2 AI is not the brightest tool in the shed. That was completely the wrong turn of phrase there, but the sharpest tool in the shed. But even then, it's like they could hold. If their AI didn't try to expand out westward and just stuck to trying to defend its borders, yes, they would still probably get overwhelmed, but it wouldn't happen anywhere near as quickly as it does. So, and I mean, it's also a testament to either how weak their AI is or how powerful Dol Amroth's is, because Dol Amroth survive longer than they do in a lot of my campaigns. So that may be a bit of a controversial choice putting them so far down, but and I know that Denethor gets debuffs, but I mean, I'm in a campaign at the moment. Yes, Gondor have just been destroyed. First faction to be destroyed by the AI. I destroyed Rune, but yeah. Denethor's gone, Faramir's gone, Boromir's gone. The entire any potential of those debuffs is long gone, and it's just not really made much of a difference. And I don't know, maybe the sort of widespread recruitment issues with like the fiefdom units is something that lets them down. I don't fully know, but yeah, they just seem to be. And I mean, some of the other choices is like Harad getting boxed in by the Allies. So what does the Gondorian ship do? It goes and blockades Feyenoble, the Harad capital, even though Harad can't do anything. So yeah, the Gondorian AI is down there for me alongside Dale's. Dale for timid, Gondor for incompetence and questionable choices. I think the next two I'm going to do in a sort of mirror to each other, which kind of works. Dunland, yeah, Dunland, but then I'm also going to put Enidwaith, but I'm actually going to put Enidwaith slightly higher. Enidwaith and Dunland's AI are honestly quite dependent on what happens to the other, because they start off as almost like rivals and things, but the other element of it is both of them not only tend to do quite well when they get given the opportunity to, but they also tend to, for the factions they tend to last a very long time. I think for Dunland that's more of a testament that they don't really have any enemies aside Enidwaith that are close to them. Because Rohan the Rohan AI can barely ever get past Isengard. And Enidwaith just tend to expand out and expand both sides of the river, and they always tend to have one of the largest amounts of territory. And now also version 5 gave them an update, gave both them and Dunland updates, and they've made them the King of Javelins and more unite the clan and tribe systems and things. I'm always impressed with how well the Enidwaith AI does. It's not to say it's a powerful AI, because they can get cut apart by Isengard or Gondor or whichever side they tend to pick, and again it's tethered to how Dunland do. They're doing quite well in the campaign I'm doing at the moment. They're having some issues with Isengard, but another reason is because for some reason the goblins decided to attack Dunland. So Dunland got crippled very early on and they haven't been able to recover. So for me, Enidwaith fit the bill quite there, that they are strong and they can do quite well as an AI. But they are also not the strongest faction and they can get overpowered. And again, they're stuck in B because the two are tethered to each other in a lot of cases. And now this next one's gonna break my heart a little bit, but Rohan, I'm gonna put Rohan have to go into a low C. Rohan's AI gets an unfair bill, and part of that unfair bill is the factor that yes, they have Isengard who they're immediately matched up against, Dol Guldur can come after them, and also the factor that their nearest and closest ally, in terms of Gondor, their AI is pretty incompetent. Rohan have the unfortunate situation where in a lot of cases they just end up getting sandwiched, and because they, and I mean, I wasn't paying a massive amount of attention to that area up until sending my force out there in the Dorwinian campaign, but what I've seen is that Rohan were actually pushing across and they were actually sieging Isengard, so they were expanding, but as soon as Mordor started hitting them in the east, they just ended up falling back and getting tied up and everything. So it's a really awkward geographical location for them, and yeah, as soon as Mordor come knocking on that other flank, they are so often in trouble. Basically, as soon as the orcs cross the river, Rohan have got problems. And that's basically the same length whether you're looking at the east or the west. If Isengard cross the Isen, Rohan are in trouble. If Mordor cross the Anduin, Rohan are in trouble. But I'm not putting them in D tier because again, it's kind of like Khand to a lesser extent, where they, or actually to a higher extent, where they are very much a victim of geography and circumstance. Only, unlike Khand, which can expand out if their allies give them a chance, the Rohan AI is just so constantly on the defensive a lot of the time. And also you have the other issue of the fact that Rohan's army is very cavalry orientated and Isengard have a lot of anti-cav. But yeah, it's difficult to put the Rohan AI higher than that. I've put Khazad-dûm and Woodland Realm above them despite them being limited by scripts because they have more powerful factions and tend to outlast Rohan a lot. But yeah, Rohan are just... It breaks my heart to put them that low because it's not their fault. And it's just... It's not the Rohan AI fault that they're so low on this list, but I can't put them higher in good conscience looking at it from an analytical perspective. But we mentioned them, so let's go for Isengard. I'm actually going to put the Isengard AI at high B. Isengard's AI is good, but the thing I will absolutely say about the Isengard AI is that it has a massive tendency to dither. It has the same issue that Dale AI has almost, is it's almost too timid. It's like looking at where they are at the moment. They didn't make any progress crossing over the Ising and going after Rohan. They were limited to the other side of the river, and the notable progress they've actually ended up making has been a couple of territories against Enedwaith and also taking advantage of Gondor. But against Rohan, they've basically been matched a mono a mono, and the only reason why they're doing a bit better now is because Mordor in the Dorwinian campaign I'm talking about hit Rohan in the back. The other thing about Isengard is that if Isengard get overpowered in the battlefield, they're also another AI that can end up getting incredibly boxed in. Because, I mean, you look at where their capital is literally at the foot of a mountain. It's stuck in a ring, it's stuck in its little own enclave almost, and they're a good faction, they're a strong faction on the field, but yeah, their AI is surprisingly slow, and I don't know if that's because the developers may have toned them down a little bit. I do know when you play as Dunland or Isengard that has an impact, but I'm talking about with no player impact. So that's where I'm sticking Isengard for now, because I just never see their AI expand as much as you would think they would. Like, you'd expect them to just march over and just swarm Rohan, but they don't. And part of that is also Enedwaith. In fact, Enedwaith are a significant reason why that happens. Okay. So we've got that going on. Trying to think on who to do next, because now we're getting into some very interesting sort of territory here. You know what? I'm just going to get them out of the way. I'm putting Mordor low A. Mordor's AI is good. They are the Swarm. They are the Paint the Map faction. I'm not putting them higher than a low A because they just get so many sort of based advantages. Their territory is one of the most defensible. They start off rather heavily surrounded by allies. And the other thing is they have one of the highest concentration of custom settlements, which are like auto pushed to giving you like your better units in a lot of cases, so they can start off just so strong and with so many different advantages that it's just I can't in good conscience stick them in high A or high or S, because it feels like these factions almost earn it more than Mordor do, whereas Mordor gets some of it kind of served on a bit of a silver platter. So That's why I can't put them higher than that. I can't put them lower than that because they are just that strong. But so just trying to balance it out, because personal opinion of their AI, as good as their AI is, but because of those things, if it was just strictly personal opinion, I'd put them down here, but it's not, so trying to be as analytical with this as I can. Right, gonna try and speed it up a little bit now. I say as I look at these very kind of stuck. Anduin. High C. I can't put them above C because again they get the victim of circumstance mentality from Rohan, but they get it a bit different where they can push and their early middle game is like their best time, so they can match Dol Guldur blow for blow, they can match the goblins blow for blow, but the issue for them more than anything else is Gundabad. Gundabad get involved and Anduin just get completely messed up every single time. So, like, the only reason why Anduin have not fallen in my current campaign is because because a combination of Erebor and Angmar have managed to cripple Gundabad, meaning that Dol Guldur are the only enemy really around to try and take them. The goblins have not done basically anything on the eastern side of the Misty Mountains. So, yeah, and also Anduin, it pains me to say this because I adore their roster, but their roster is not the strongest in the game. So that doesn't help, but they also don't start off that economically well off as a faction, so it's a lot of mix of reasons that kind of hinder them, but they can still hold their own, and I'm putting them higher than Woodland Realm and Cousin Doom, because whilst they do have the issue of being victim of circumstance like Rohan, they still put up a very good fight every single time. Like, they get stomped, but they don't get stomped hiding. They get stomped trying to fight and meet in the open, so they do drag it out a long while. Next up, let's go with Moria. Now, if we were going on quality of units, Moria would be down here. But I think Moria are actually solid middle of the field for an AI. Because they can just be such a pest to so many different factions. They can be such an annoyance. Like again, bringing up the campaign at the moment, they crippled Dunland early on, just out of nowhere. And they are like a fly you cannot swat a lot of the times when you're playing against them. Is like they just always seem to pop up in different areas, and they just take on so many different factions, and again, it's largely because of the number area, but as much as I am saying that about them, I can't put them higher than that, because as much as they are a pest, they also have an element of that isolationism. Like, they don't tend to go that far beyond the Misty Mountains. They harass all the factions around the Misty Mountains, but they very rarely ever expand further than that. Partly because they get limited by things like Imladris, but Imladris and Fenestrunen, but aside from that. So again, they're a solid B, but they're a solid B because it's a testament of how much of a pain they can be to deal with. And next, campaign-wise, if we were going Ardenayam, I'd put them probably around. Well, I put them where I put them in the personal favourite because they have the freedom of choice and movement. But Honestly, as an actual AI faction, I'm actually going to put them on low B. Because they are seafarers. They have the opportunity or the freedom as an AI to go all across, up and down, and basically attack anywhere, and yet they always seem to beeline for Dol Amroth, and AI against AI, it makes sense, is the nearest enemy and things, but it's also the case that they really don't do that much either as an AI, so yeah, they're up there because they are strong. They are a strong faction, but they're a strong faction that just doesn't tend to do anything. When in reality, if the Med 2 AI was more intelligent, they could dominate the entire coastline of Middle Earth. So, okay, next up. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about them either, so. Next up, and now we're really getting into some interesting territory here. Dorwinian as an AI faction. Honestly, I don't think whether they pick the elves or the humans, it really makes too much a difference. I think they probably squeeze in about here. Problem with Dorwinian is the AI starts off against a very strong neighbour, and a lot of the time they don't survive beyond that. But I'm putting them here because when that AI leaves them alone in campaigns, I've seen how much Dorwinian can expand, and it's absolutely massive, even as an AI. So that's why they're sort of mirrored with Khand here. Like two factions that, when given the opportunity to, can actually expand out massively, but are otherwise limited quite a bit. And also bear in mind that in the just a little hint from the recording, I stuck Dorwinian in personal preference up here in S, and now AI based they're in B. So next up we have who to do next. Erebor, I think. Again, without the influence of Rune, Erebor's AI can actually do very, very well. When Rune are involved, Erebor's AI hold their own for a while, but it's not brilliant, and also they are a bit spread out with the Iron Hills as well. So I think due to that tethering again, they're stuck here with Dorwinian and Khand. The Dwarven AI for Erebor is very good, but they are limited in a lot of cases by that. But now we are actually on to the dwarfs again. I am going to talk about Ered Luin, because Ered Luin are a weird one. And I say a weird one because it fundamentally depends on which side they go. The ironic thing is that if they stick with the side of good and refuse the rings, I would actually put the AI kind of down here, because yes, it's strong, but it's incredibly slow. So that would actually stipulate them properly down here, but when they accept the rings, it's a completely different change of the game, because they just go after everyone, which would actually probably pit them up here with the goblins, or maybe higher, because they can actually hold their own for more reasons than just numbers. So the divide between the two, I think the divide between the two actually ends up paying them down here. When they're good, they are very strong. I mean, they're strong as good or bad, but it's just different dynamics. When they're good and keep with the allies, the world of good and everything, they can slowly, methodically move up the north and eventually push in and hit Angmar. but it takes time and it takes development, which can sometimes be to their detriment, because it can sometimes be after Dunedain have been overwhelmed or things. But when they're evil and they go up against the High Elves Bree, and I mean they're fighting High Elves Bree, Dunedain and Angmar at the moment technically, and I would say they're losing, but it's almost like an Anduin kind of loss, like, or Rohan kind of losing. They're losing, but they're making the enemies pay for like every step. So it's, and look, I'm also going to say that C upwards are still quite good AI. It's these that are the questionable ones. Then going on from that, we also have, and I'm going to try and quickly wrap these other ones up, the High Elf AI. I think the High Elf AI is High C. They are a strong faction, but like Khazad-dûm and the Woodland Realm, they are limited by circumstance, and honestly, as much as I love Lothlorien, I'm going to put them on a... I'm actually going to put Lothlorien about here, because whilst they suffer from the same thing as the other elven factions, out of the 3 elven factions, Lothlorien are actually the ones who are capable of being the most aggressive as well, so that they have a more willingness to work with the allied forces and actually push on and be more aggressive. So High Elves there partly because they start so separated from one another. Lorien here because they do actually go out and physically try to attack territories. They don't just sit there all the time, like some people. Now we're down to the 3 of Eriador. Angmar. Angmar's AI is high A. They are high A because they can take on so many enemies with a similar nature to Dol Guldur, but I think Dol Guldur do it a bit better than they do. And they can just swarm out and take on some pretty strong factions and hold their own in terms of Angmar. And they're not the best, they're not the strongest, but they're not the weakest either. And they do have some advantage in terms of distance, and like they can form up a pretty strong border, and they are also helped by the factor that yes, they only have one ally in the region, but the ally they have is an ally that spams out units so much, so that gives them a little bit of a benefit and a bonus. They do eventually get what's coming to them a lot of the time, not all the time. Some of the time they actually push and take all of Eriador, but or a good proportion of it, but yeah, it varies, and obviously a lot of this also depends on where you're playing. Anyway, Bree. You know what? The Bree AI, again, it's an A. The Bree AI... Bree's AI is an AI that I've never seen do badly. They don't... Actually, I'm going to put them a bit lower than that. I'm going to put them a bit lower than that because I've never seen them do badly, but I've also never seen them expand that much. Now, towards the coast, like against Ered Luin when they accept the rings, or against Enidwaith if there's fighting going on there, I've seen them expand like crazy. But in the west I mean, but in the east against Angmar, they don't really expand that much. They do happily fight Dunland as well, so they're a various mix there. And they're also quite an economically strong faction, which does work to their benefit as well. But bringing up the rear, last but not least, certainly not least, the Northern Dunedain. The Northern Dunedain are a faction that can get overwhelmed very easily if they don't expand. But they also hold their own, and they hold their own like anything. And they also have an advantage where out of all factions, they are the ones who spread out probably in the randomest set of directions, and it does work to their benefit in a lot of cases. So for that, I'm actually going to put them sort of there on B, because they they have that fundamental risk of getting overwhelmed so quickly, but at the same time they can just hold their own for a good proportion of time. So it works to their advantage in a lot of cases. But yes, that's my accounting for this. So just to recap, we've got Rune and Gundabad in S. We have Dol Guldur, Dol Amroth, Angmar, Bree, and Mordor in A. Then in B we have Isengard, Harad, Dunedain, Moria, Enidwaith, Erebor, Dorwinion, Karn, Lorien, Ered Luin, Dunland, and Yara Deniam. Then in C, C is basically the case of victim of circumstance or limited by scripts more than the others. So you've got High Elves, Anduin, Khazad-dûm, Woodland Realm, and Rohan. And then bringing up the rear, one for timid nature and the other for being just so utterly incompetent as an AI, Gondor and Dale. So, yeah, that doesn't necessarily always bode well, as it having the evil factions up there, but again, this is in my experience, and I tend to play good factions more than evil, so maybe that has a bit of an impact on it, but... And it's not to knock the good forces either, because the ones like Dunedain, Erebor, Ered Luin, Enidwaith even, Lorien, Dorwinion, like, these factions are powerful factions when they get given the opportunity. It's just in a lot of cases they're not given the opportunity, so... But yes, that's going to hold fire on the tier maker bit for today. So I almost hit stop stream, which would have been a really silly thing to do. Thank you all for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed. And if you would like to see some similar content to this one, you can click there. Or if you would like to change around and have an explore of some of the other content, then you can check out the link below, which will be to a playlist. And if you would like to check out the content on other pages or socials, or if you would like to explore some of the other elements in detail, or pick up a book or whatever, or come and chat to me on Twitch when I'm alive, then down there. And as you can see, it has a list of what to expect on each of those platforms. And until next time, welcome to the Kingdom of Avalas, the world of Fellow Mind books. Please do like, please do subscribe, and if you want to, pop out a comment.